Hello there. It is so great to be with you. My name is Teresa McCloy, and I'm your host of the Doing What Matters podcast. And I am so grateful to be back with you again this week. Thanks so much for tuning in and joining me in a short conversation around living from rest, not rush, and really focusing in on doing what matters. Now, I come to you as a business owner, as a person of faith, as someone who's passionate about helping other business owners grow their businesses and do the work that they were called to do, but not without sacrificing anything, really knowing yourself well, living your best life, and living into the work that you're called to do. And on today's episode, I want to chat with you about a practice that I've been using for several years, using a guiding word or a guiding phrase. So let's do it. Let's dive in. So as we jump into this practice, it may be something you've done before. It may be something you're familiar with. To be honest, I've probably talked about it on the podcast with you at least once a year for the last 2 or 3 years, because I've been doing this practice since probably 2015 or 2016. But I've refined it just a little bit this year, and I want to share it with you and just a little bit of how I'm using it as a rhythm in my life, how I use it. There's a lot of term that I use sometimes of behaviors, routines, and rhythms. And to form a new behavior, you have to get into a routine, and then eventually it becomes a rhythm. And this is one of the rhythms that I've had in my life for a long time, using a guiding word or a guiding phrase to kind of set up my year. I am not much, I don't know about you, but I am not much on New Year's resolutions. But having a guiding word or phrase feels totally different than a resolution of, I'm going to do this by the end of the year. It may go to my lack of loving the word goals as well. I would rather have something that feels like something that's deep within me internally, something that I've really discerned around, that even God and I might have sat together with, and that I really believe that God is the CEO of my business right along with me. And so I want to discern with him what's going to guide my business for the year. Totally different than a resolution or a goal. As I said, I've been doing this for quite a long time. You may do something similar, but there's something to be said for the practice and the rhythm of doing something. When I wrote my book back a couple of years ago, one of the chapters in the book towards the end is practices behind the real life process. If you're not familiar with the work that I do, I have a process, a life management rule of life process that I often work with my clients around. And it's just kind of my way of doing life, 4 different components. And there's a lot of practices or rhythms that are underneath this process that I have. This guiding word or guiding phrase is kind of in that category of practicing the examine. And the examine is just that daily, weekly, yearly look at your life. And then out of that can come something that becomes like the North Star that's going to guide you over the next year. It's going to be something that's going to come underneath. But how could we discover that? How could we find that? Well, I've refined my practice, my process around this just a little bit. So I'm going to share it with you. It's a little bit different. It's got some little tweaks to it than what I've done in the past, but it's still the same practice at its core. But if you would like to follow along, I actually have a free resource for you as well with this podcast episode. And you can go to thereallifeprocess.com/word 2024. So thereallifeprocess.com/word, WORD 2024. And you can download this little one-page exercise if you like something visually that you can see. Love for you to go pick that up and download it. But there are kind of 5 or 6 steps that you might want to walk through as you look at this guiding word. First of all, I think it is just listening. So I often start clear back in November. So I'm recording this here in the middle of December, and I've really been listening and paying attention since October, November. I've been kind of wrapping up my guiding word for this year. The invitation that I felt God gave me for this year was further up and deeper in. And just to kind of give you a little story and let you see how I go through this process, when I came up with that last year, I knew that for us to grow the business, for me to grow personally, I needed to kind of reach higher, go further up in my faith, further up in my growth as a business owner, and also go deeper in. That I needed to put some things in my place that were, or in my life that were deeper practices, deeper rhythms, that I needed to lean in, really in trusting myself, going deeper in with God, deeper in with my family. I knew we were going to have a lot of changes in the business last year, and all of those things have come to pass, and I have had to lean in. Further up and deeper in was my word last year, my phrase, I guess. But as that was coming to, the year's coming to an end, I start to listen and learn. And for this year, one of the things I'm leaning into as I listen is something around the word foundation or foundational. I feel like right now in my business, not that I'm starting over, but we are in a whole different place. It's a whole nother conversation about stages of business, but we're just in a different stage than we were a year ago. But rather than just take off and fly, I feel like this year, again, for me personally and professionally, is a year of foundational growth, putting some practices and rhythms and foundational things into place so that we're ready for the next 5 to 10 years. And there's more I could say about that, but that's not the point of this podcast episode, is why I'm choosing that word. But I've just been listening in. And for some reason, by God's leading, I believe, that is the word that is coming to pass for me. So that's the first step to me, is just to listen in and begin to kind of see what 2, 3, 4 words or phrases are coming to pass. I also, as I'm reading books, as I'm reading blogs, as I'm reading other emails that might be coming in, information that's coming into me, is there a pattern? Is there something that I'm seeing that's really resonating deep within my spirit that I'm listening to internally? And I start to capture those things and write them down. And then once I've come up with 2 or 3 words or phrases, I start to ask, what are my thoughts around that? What are my feelings around that? How does that check for me in my gut or in my spirit? If I was to hold that all year as the guiding, does that feel like it's just something I need for a short period, or is this something I'm going to need to grow and expand in? So I begin to kind of try on the word and see if it resonates with me, see what my thoughts and my feelings and my actions and reactions are to that word. And If you've been around listening to me for very long, you know that checking in with all three of those centers to me is really important. And does that word resonate in all areas of my life is another question, or those words. Does it resonate for me professionally? Does it resonate for me personally? Does it resonate for me spiritually and in my faith? Is it going to stretch me and grow me and challenge me in all of those places? Is it something that anchors me in all areas of my life? Because I believe for me and for you to really do what matters and live from a place of internal rest, not external rush, we need these anchors. And this guiding word or phrase can be one of those. So once I've begun to listen, and then I've checked in with all three centers, and I've seen if it checks in with all three places, I start to look at that kind of list of possible words, and I research the word or the phrase a little bit. I actually go to Google and I want to find out the definition, and I want to find out the meaning of the word. I want it to be something that I feel like I really know why I chose this word or phrase. And once I look up those 2 to 3 that might be resonating with me, and there's been years where I just know that's the word. Once I've done that, I also, because of my faith, I want to go look at where does this word, or where would I resonate with this word from Scripture? And I generally then will choose a Scripture passage or a 1 or 2 verses that go with that word. Once I've been through that whole process, listening in, getting it down to 2 or 3 phrases that I'm hearing over the last couple of months of the year, then checking in head, heart, body, gut connection. How does that resonate in all three of those places? How does it resonate professionally, personally, and in my faith? I've looked up the word. I've done all the definitions and synonyms and made sure it's that word. And then I've chosen a scripture to go with it. Then I'm ready to claim that word. I'm ready to say, this is it. This is what God and I have discerned together, and I've decided this is the one. Discernment and decision-making, 2 different things. Discernment, long period spent in discernment, in prayer, in meditation, in quiet, letting something sink in as you discern something. And decision-making is, to me, where I'm going for lunch. So I don't want to jump in and just make a decision. I want to discern. And so if I've been discerning this fall around my word for next year, then once I've chosen it, I want to write it down, and I may want to put it in several places. One of the first places that I put it is inside of my life management tool that I use that's called my real life view. It's a part of what we teach in our process. It's a 2-page document that kind of contains my needs, my values, my mission statement, the areas of focus that I have in my life, and the projects that I'm working on in the current 90 days. So I want to put it there in that document that I read through on a regular basis. I want it to be front and center. Another thing that I really like to do is share it with someone. So usually I will share that with my team. I might share it with my coach, with my mentor, so that other people know that that is my word and that that is what is guiding me for the year. That's just part of accountability for me. That's how I'm wired. I like some of that accountability. So I just want to encourage you, whatever your story might have been from this past year, maybe using a guiding word or a guiding phrase will be helpful for you in 2024. As I said, I've done this practice usually at the end of the year, but if you don't get to walking through this until January, that's okay. But I encourage you sometime in December or January to really take some time, begin to listen, begin to lean in, and just have a different ear to hearing something over and over again, or just knowing in a gut check in your spirit that this is a place that I am being invited to for 2024. If you choose a word or a phrase, I would love to hear about it. So again, you can go to thereallifeprocess.com/word 2024 and download the exercise. It just has a list of words on there and some of these steps that I've just walked through to help you lean into choosing your word and just kind of be a jumping off point. You may or may not need that. Either way, though, here's an action step I want you to take. Once you've discovered your guiding word or your guiding phrase, I would love to hear what it is. I would love for you to share that with me. Just email me at teresa@thereallifeprocess.com. I want to encourage you about it. I want to pray over it for you. I want to see you take your guiding word or phrase and use it in 2024 to see what is possible just by holding on to something, and let that be your North Star and your guide. And I'm going to come back in 2024 at the beginning of January here on the podcast. And I think I know what mine is, but I'm going to come back and I am going to share it with you so we can do this journey together in 2024 of our guiding word, our guiding phrase for the new year. So let's do this together. I love to be in community. Email me at teresa@thereallifeprocess.com. Remember, we spell real life with one L, so thereallifeprocess.com. And email me what your guiding word or phrase is so I can pray for that with you. I can know it. We can be in accountability with one another. And I promise you, I'll come back in January and also share mine with you. So I am just wishing you, as we're coming close to the holiday season, I am just wishing you all the best in the holidays. It is a joy to do this podcast with you each and every week. Lean in to all the special moments that are to come over the next few weeks. We'll be here each and every week with a podcast on Wednesday morning, even through the holiday season. But remember that every ordinary day has an extraordinary moment. You just have to look for it. Maybe it will be part of you discovering your word or phrase for 2024. Have a great week, everyone. We'll be back next week with more from the Doing What Matters podcast.